Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 6th Annual Responsible Travel and Tourism Forum. My name is Jacqueline Cunell, and on behalf of Baxter Travel Media, we're thrilled to present the 2012 RTTF Webinar Series. We would like to start by expressing our sincere gratitude to the webinar series sponsors, Air Canada, Delta Chelsea Hotel, and the Ted Rogers School of Management at Ryerson University. And I should say that the sponsors have supported RTTF from day one, and we thank them for the continuing support and believing in the work that we do to advance sustainability in the travel industry. Following last year's RTTF webinar success, we're really excited to feature 6 insightful presentations, which we are sure will appeal to a broad segment of our industry. Now, this year's program content has been developed with a combination of your input from the responses to the questionnaires that we received and with sustainability and responsibility topics, which we have seen emerge as the key issues for our industry. We have an impressive speaker lineup, and we encourage you to visit our website to see the program and browse through the bios. Please tell your colleagues, friends about RTTF so we can continue to build a community of travel professionals that advocate sustainability best practices. Here we list the webinars. So the next one is cruise and destinations. So please register for it and tell everyone you know about it. The responsible traveler, sorry, hold on one second. Here we go. So the responsible traveler. So today's webinar, we will address how the travel and tourism industry can help travelers become active participants in the pursuit of sustainability. We will have 2 presenters. I will start with an introduction about what travelers can do before they go away, while they are there and when they return, and what the role of the sector is in making travelers part of the solution. After that, Aaron Smith, founder of Go Volunteering, joins us from Turks and Caicos, where he is at a conference at the moment, but he lives in Vancouver. And he will tell us how organizations like Go Volunteering can help travelers engage with communities through volunteering and thus enabling another form of responsible travel endeavor. I will moderate the session as well, so we will both take about approximately 20 minutes, and then we will do the Q&As. Please type your questions as they come up. Tell us who they're for, and I will compile them and cluster them by themes if necessary, and then we will try to answer them together at the end of the session. So today's webinar. So RTTF from its inception is a key objectives, and over the years we have become a platform for the travel supply chain to showcase their sustainability efforts. And these are things like having greener operations, protect the environment, provide economic benefit to the destinations, and so on. These initiatives, in order to be successful, require the cooperation and participation of all the stakeholders, as you know. This can include the local authorities for destinations, tourism establishment owners, the managers, employees, and of course the most important one, the traveler. Now this presentation intends to provide professionals with a very basic guideline on the importance of fostering responsible travel behavior. It is based on a guide on how to become a responsible traveler that Dr. Sonia Gracci from Ryerson University and I developed for Hotels Combined. It's a company from Australia. This guide can be downloaded for free, and I have included a link at the end of the presentation. So today we will cover essentially, the context. How tourism is a force for good, but can also cause damage to the environment, society, and culture. Why should we, as an industry, take an active role in engaging travelers in a way that they will support our efforts? What are some of the things that travelers can do before they leave home, while they are in destination, and then when they come back? And then how can we provide some effective messaging about sustainability and the behaviors and actions needed to support it? I have also included a little bit about the fear of greenwashing as a potential obstacle to messaging, and we'll address that in the last section. The why. Okay, so regardless of whether you're a tour operator, a hotel, a destination, transport company, tourism marketing company, consultant, and etc., we all do play a role in including responsible travel messaging in our communications. It may start as self-enlightened interest in supporting the promotion of, let's say, your green initiatives. It may be things around highlighting niche travel categories, things like sustainable golf and green weddings, volunteering, green meetings, and so on. It also helps to encourage communities to develop tourism products and services which are sustainability centered, such things as, locally made crafts, indigenous shows, local food, and so on. The key is to foster awareness and to help make choices for products and services that will lead to the delivery of a cleaner, more authentic and travel-centered and ultimately fulfilling tourism experience. So the context. Um, the negative and positive impacts may already be familiar to you, but so this is just a really quick review. The key benefits of tourism essentially are broadly around the economic and social, cultural, and environmental areas. The economic benefits, as you know, it generates jobs to the community. It could be a tour guide, hotel housekeeping, anyone who's directly involved in contact with the client and in the operation. And then we have the indirect employment, which is generated through other sectors and industries such as agricultural, food production, retail businesses. Whatever the visitor spends in the destination generates income for the local community and can lead to the alleviation of poverty in countries which are heavily reliant on tourism, and that's many countries that use tourism as a source of foreign exchange. This also allows for economic diversification, and this is important to areas where they may be a high concentration of industries like mining or manufacturing, which are environmentally damaged. So that provides an alternative. There's also infrastructure development. Airports, roads, schools, hospitals, retail areas all have the potential to help local economies, and it can aid in the development by allowing more trade, better flow of goods and services for the community. Then we have the social benefits, and tourism can really bring a real sense of pride and identity in the communities. They showcase very distinct characteristics of their way of life, the history, the culture, and tourism can encourage the preservation of tradition, which may be a risk of disappearing in a globalized world. Lastly, we have the environmental benefits, and tourism provides financial support for the conservation of ecosystems and natural resource management, which is what really makes the destinations more desirable and more authentic. This could be parks, reefs, forests, and so on. Now, on the negative side, all that makes tourism good can also be destructive. Hence, as we talk about the paradox of tourism. So things such as too much tourism traffic can lead to exceeding the environmental and social carrying capacity. This creates a strain on resources like water, energy, food, natural habitat. Also, unchecked tourism development leads to things like soil erosion, increase of pollution, waste, discharges into the sea and waterways, and then it has an effect on puts pressure on endangered species of animals, plants, and overall it makes the destination vulnerable to deforestation and biodiversity. So the same way that tourism can encourage the preservation of social, cultural authenticity of host communities, mass tourism especially may also erode traditional values by introducing foreign lifestyles, which as you know, may be in conflict with cultural, historical, and religious heritage of the community. So what's the tourism paradox? It lies on that tension between our desire and a really inherent desire of humanity to travel the world and the need really now to make sure that we balance it that provides the most benefit with the least harm. So now we go into what the travelers can do to be more responsible. Now a lot of this is pretty obvious because we are likely, hopefully, that we do some of it ourselves. But how can we as an industry institutionalize it? And I use the word loosely. The point is essentially that we want to ensure that we raise awareness. We cannot assume that everyone has the knowledge to behave in a responsible way in this context. And even if they do, will they take action, right? So I think all of us are really aware of that action gap, what we say and what we do. So we can start by, making the steps to raising awareness, to inform, and ideally this will become embedded in the traveler's ethos, essentially all of us, humanity's ethos, if you will. And at least our aim is that it will become habitual, that we no longer have to tell people what to do in this context. So here are some things that will make some recommendations about how you can help your clients before they travel, when they get to the destinations, and then when they return. So before they go away, helping to plan a vacation, is complicated in itself, right? So let alone add another layer of complexity with sustainability. But there are indeed many tools there to help. There are responsible travel websites. There are things such as certification that help, accreditation for the hotel accommodation industry, carbon offsets for transportation. Or at a very basic level, part of their research will include just figuring out if the supplier has an environmental policy. Just go on the website, what is the corporate social responsibility statement? What are some of the guidelines or green practices that they have? Now, if you are a supplier or provider of services and you have a policy and don't have it published yet, think of how you can go about highlighting your programs so that your clients know, and they can help you to support these efforts. It is important that the message convey the company's commitment, but you also have to provide the concrete actions that you're taking and then show the results in order for you to have credibility. So some of the things that travelers can do before they go home, I know these are pretty obvious things, but the question is, do you do this yourself before you go away? I know that I have to, put a list and then just do it, and check it before I go, that make sure that I have done all those things. Some of it is for preventive measures in terms of things going wrong while you're away related to electricity or water, but think of the whole idea that saving energy while we're away highlights the fact that we cannot really compartmentalize sustainability, right? It needs to happen at all points of our lives, and not just at home, and not just when we're on holidays, or the other way around, right? So essentially, we do things to conserve energy and recycle and avoid waste at home, but when we go on holidays, we just let loose. So it's the continuity of care. Sustainability means that it is through all the points in our lives. I'm not going to go through the items that you can do about turning off or turning off or down your hot water heater and so on. But there's a couple other quick things, such as cancel subscriptions and or donate them. Before, I used to have my news sent to my iPad. Excuse me, my iPad. I would come home and it would be a pile of papers on my front door. Pack light to avoid extra weight, right? So that really helps. And they said this collective action can lead to efficiencies in energy. And some statistics do show that we may be shedding weight on luggage, but it seems that people are gaining weight in other areas. But that's another topic. So people are getting bigger, and planes are weighing more, apparently. Packaging and the waste that it causes is something that sometimes we don't think about when we're packing. So remember that many places don't have the capacity to recycle. So don't take your dry cleaning plastic or the toothpaste cardboard box. It's better not to leave things in the destination, which will go into their landfill. Just basically bring back that empty container so it can be recycled here where there is capacity. So these are all kind of things that may seem really obvious, but it may be helpful to include in a guide on how to become a responsible traveler. Now, when travelers arrive at a destination, yeah, they will be staying somewhere, right? Some form of accommodation. They will be eating somewhere, whether it's an all-inclusive resort for 90% of their time or outside. They will explore the area they're visiting and shopping, maybe some more than others, and they will be interacting with residents, and again, some more than others, right? They will be virtually touching all parts of the tourism supply chain, and each one of those segments have their own set of sustainability challenges. And we'll just go through some of the things briefly, how the travel behavior can support the local effort where there are sustainability initiatives. So while staying at hotels, most of the time we're thinking being responsible staying at a hotel around energy savings. The issue when we do tourism from developed nations is that have all these facilities that we replicate what we do at home while we're on holidays, provided that the facilities are there. So we're looking at obviously reduction of energy, and there's some actions that can be taken there, pretty obvious things. Reduction of water. Now, water is a really, really big issue in destinations where water is scarce, and this is, being used, water that is scarce, and it's being put towards tourism as opposed to the local population. Now, there are some statistics on the guide. I won't go through them now, but you can download and look at some of the water usage of tourists versus local communities. The reducing of waste. Some of the facilities are available, some of them are not, and then again, some of the strategies of you mitigating. Now, housekeeping. Some hotels do have the bin to put your stuff to recycle, and then the big issue is the towel usage. Every single conference that I go to, there's always that big towel debate. So I have a little interactive within a webinar environment. So we'll go through this towel message and see which one you think is most effective. This was some informal research that was done a little while ago, and unfortunately I don't have the resource now. I'll have to look for it. If anybody's interested, I can try to do that. So what they did is they tried a variety of towel reuse messaging, and then they measure the guest responses. And they were measured by essentially the number of, the percentage increase in the recycling, and then the staff had to follow this very quickly. So I'll read them very quickly, and then once we're finished, just put the number down, what you think is the most effective message, and then I'll tell you which one it was. So the first one is help save the environment. So that is essentially stresses around, the fact that we need to respect nature. Help save resources for future generations. This talks about that intergenerational justice that we often talk about, the fact that we need to save energy for future generations to be able to enjoy the things the way we have them today. Partner with us to help save the environment. So it urges guests to help preserve the environment. And then join your fellow citizens in helping to save the environment, starting, essentially saying that other guests are doing it as well, so joining this community. So take a second, which one you think is actually the one that will be most effective. And the research said that message number 4 was the one that was most effective. And this was measured by the fact that 28% more people reuse their towels. Somehow this is not the one I would have picked, but apparently that's what had the most appeal, as it created a sense of community about being good, and therefore this was the most effective. So there you go. If you're a hotel, or if you have some suggestions where you are at a hotel, when the messaging that you've received in your room, just tell them, hey, this is not working, or just get your better training for your staff so that we can help you to save energy. Then the other things that tourists do, obviously, they go sightseeing. So it's important to encourage the clients to do the research before they go. And things, again, some of them are pretty obvious, but using local guides, it's really important, not only because clients are likely to learn more, but also the money may go directly to them, and this helps the economy. And this enhances what is called the tourism multiplier effect. and that's very important to address the issues of poverty alleviation. Things around wildlife, watching them in the least disruptive way, and make sure that our presence does have an impact. Whichever way we look at it, it will always have some form of impact. The other thing is a lot of this animal and marine and land shows. There is movements about shutting down some of these attractions. These are a little bit tricky because some of them may in fact be used as reserves and to help in the rehabilitation of animals. So it's important to be informed and ensure that clients have this attractions do provide clear communication and messaging around what they do. The other thing that is very important, again, linked to the multiplier effect and linked to the poverty alleviation, is to support tourism that is indigenous or tourism that is not in the major tourist areas. This also encourages, the preservation of their traditions, which some of them are being lost. Religious side and local customs, cultural religious sensitivity is really developed through understanding, right? So this is how we as a traveler develop the empathy for other ways of living, and then our behavioral change can make a huge impact in becoming much more really empathic and respectful. And then archaeological sites, these are absolutely amazing places to visit. It is humanity's heritage, but let's not forget that they do belong to the local people. So these are some of the things that we included in our guide to help travelers, be aware, be more conscious of their behavior. Eating. Everybody does that when they go away, and this is one of the biggest areas actually where tourism can benefit the local economy. This can foster agricultural production as well as the preparation of traditional food, beverages, spirits, and so on. It also helps to make the experience much more authentic, and tourism suppliers should be encouraged to source locally as much as it is possible. So these are some of my suggestions about eating local, visit family restaurants. Even if you're staying in an all-inclusive, that the hotel has some kind of policy about what happens with the leftover food. Not that it's recycled and you have it for breakfast the next day, but more around what some of the raw materials are not used, and then the whole principle of avoiding waste. Shopping, one of the greatest joys of traveling in some places, is another way of helping the economy, right? And it links to the more that you shop and the more directly that it goes to the people, then the better that it helps them. So these include, buying local crafts, indigenous, for indigenous materials. Look at things around endangered species. Make sure that they are not using things that may be really exotic for us, but they are threatened. Go to the local businesses, markets, bazaars, instead of the large shopping centers. So this can be fun as well, but do make sure that you don't do it at the expense of the local people. And then the last one is bargaining. I hate doing that. I can't bargain when I go on holidays. This is expected in some cultures, but the whole idea is that we avoid this kind of confrontational behavior. A fair price or even a little bit more can provide much needed support for the local vendors and their families. So what can they do when they come back? And, for better or for worse, nowadays, technology to share information is ubiquitous. Therefore, travelers should be encouraged to share their experiences. We want to travel to really become advocates, and we help, as well as, help us to improve our sustainable operations and community. We want them to become advocates. I outline just in the slide many of the web applications they can use, but another form of involvement is by reaching out to company foundations. A lot of companies have these foundations. They encourage their travelers to participate, let's say, in fundraising or in events or volunteering in destination. And then Aaron will do a little bit more talking about that. Also, we don't underestimate the power of the consumer-driven review sites. These are pretty pretty impactful. Watch for those. Often the traveler seems to know more than we do sometimes. Since there's more of them than us. So stay on top of responsible travel reviews, green travel magazines, blogs, and any other sources which may provide insights into the green or ethical business practices. So I have a couple more slides, and we're going to talk just very briefly about what can the industry do. So I think we can all agree that there are good reasons for us as an industry to take an active role in communicating the strategies that convey the green and obviously the social attributes as well. And so as I said before, it can help you to sell the tourism product, enhance your brand reputation, and build the client and also employee loyalty, right? So by communicating sustainability, the issue with sustainability is that in fact it's kind of delicate, and it can be really intimidating because there may be fear of greenwashing. Now, greenwashing is an interesting topic, and I did a workshop recently on greenwashing, and it warrants its own webinar, and perhaps we could do that in the future. Now, here's just one slide, and I won't go through it, but I added a link so you can take a look. This is a really fun report by Tara Choice. So go in, explore a little bit. You will recognize that some of the sins can easily be allocated to travel. They have been designed, and the research is related mainly to consumer products. So take a look at it and just see if you're designing your strategy about communicating green for your organization, that you don't do any of those. Here are some resources. So please, these are just a few of the links that are, in my view, some of the best available of how to, they're focused really on the responsible traveler. You can use as a guide for you to download and give to your clients, or you can use as a guideline for you to create your own material to provide to your client. These are just some closing thoughts that we had for the guide that we made. And what it does, it really makes an appeal to the traveler to help protect the areas they visit. And as an industry, we really need to help them by creating a tourism product that is benign to the environment, that it respects the local culture and traditions, and spreads the economic benefit in an equitable manner. So this is, again, just very quick outline. Download the guides to get more details, and I thank you for your attention. And now, let me introduce Aaron, who, as I said, is in Turks and Caicos, and he will talk to us about volunteering as a way for responsible travelers to give back. So thank you very much, and here's Aaron.
Hi, everybody. I'm thrilled to be speaking with you all today, and thanks to Jacqueline for inviting me. It's my first official, so I thought I'd just give a brief backhand. Let me just see if I believe I know how to do this. So I thought I'd just briefly introduce myself and the business and what I'm trying to achieve through this model, and look at where we've come, where we are today, and what I think is going to be the future for voluntourism, and what the challenges are and what its responsibilities are. So I was very fortunate to travel to East Africa and work on a microfinance mission with female entrepreneurs in and around Moshi near Kilimanjaro and Mombasa. And that was an amazing experience for me personally. I felt like I learned a lot. I had a deeper cultural connection. I don't know what the slides are over here, but and at the end of it, at the end of being so involved in that project and in that community, I came home and felt that I had a positive impact during my time there. And in looking back at all the other travel I'd done prior to that, it wasn't the same. I hadn't left what I consider to be a positive impact on the ground. So that was that kind of set me off on a tangent, and I I started looking for travel experiences that were would be similar to that. And my next trip was taking my father down to Costa Rica for a few weeks, and we participated in a house construction project for a single mom and her kids, and I looked around at the other group of volunteers that were there and paid close attention to my dad. He was 66 or 67 at the time, and learned a whole lot. I saw that he had an amazing travel experience. It was a wonderful bonding between my father and I. But I also, and we were accomplishing things. We were part of our costs were going to provide the labor, or sorry, the lumber and the construction materials that were needed, and we were working alongside locals and getting to know them, and that was a hugely impactful part. But there were some instances and some challenges along the way where volunteers weren't showing up because their expectations weren't managed. They had blisters on their hands, and it was hot, and it was muggy, and because of that, the project stalled, and it was just, in my opinion, it was soured on both sides of the fence. So I set out thinking about how we could maybe make a different system whereby potential volunteers can find projects that are matched to their limitations, whether they be budget or fitness or duration, and then provide an early stage where we can basically connect someone with some choice, with some matchable choice. And that was really the infancy of Go Voluntouring, and then I just started connecting organizations and talked to them and said, you know, would your charity or your nonprofit be interested in this? And would it make a difference to your efforts? And would you be supportive of a aggregate platform like this? And in just about every case, they were hugely supportive. And together, I worked with them to build something that was respective of what they're trying to do. So we went live about a year ago. It took about 2 years to build it, and yeah, it's my attempt to use travel in assisting some very real problems out there, and hoping that we're going to do a good job with that. So that's kind of that's the start. So, you know, I think everyone should be pretty aware of voluntourism is certainly a buzzword, it refers to holiday alternatives that, generally speaking, blend short-term projects within the framework of contemporary travel. And I've kind of looked at it as that within voluntourism, there's 6 pillars of programming, and those are, of course, environmental conservation, community development, women and youth projects, cultural, historical conservation, health and wellness, and teaching and mentoring. So those are 6, participable, not even a word, but 6 programs that you can jump in, or pillars of programs that you can jump in and get involved with. And here's just, some people may be driven to go further than just being responsible tourists, and may decide that voluntourism or engaging in these activities can provide a lasting contribution to the community and while fulfilling a desire to be a responsible citizen. And this is where I think volunteering becomes an enabler for certainly for the. So our goal, I've never tried to make things overly complicated, and that's true with our plans, and true with the site, and what our future goals are. But it was to turn, and it's a big goal. It was to turn 1 million travelers into 1 million volunteers, with a goal of becoming a hub for vetted, personalized, and inventoried projects. That was my attempt to. Was some checks and balances that we do run nonprofits. We ask for their registration number, and we test that against GuideStar and other Crown registries, and look and see who their board of directors are, how long they've been involved in, and what their track record is. There's some good ones in the States that show their financials and gives us a sense of their history and their legacy, so that we know that when someone's visiting our site, that they can be feel quite comfortable that we've done some homework and have a look at it. We try to get to see as many of them as we can as well. It's a huge challenge with the number of projects we have, but that is it's very important that we join in. We're active in with our project partners, and we do our homework for the sake of everybody. Today, we've currently got 3,000 projects in 96 countries. The most common question I get is, how many projects do you have today? And I don't know. I can never tell, because a lot of the projects have starting and end dates, and because of that, on September 6th they go offline. So it's never something I've got an accurate ballpark on. That for us, it's more just about keeping the content and the diversity. And generally speaking, I do prefer projects that have an end date, so that those communities don't get reliant necessarily on volunteerists. It's just more of a bridge to fulfill what their objectives are. So we've done about 2,000 volunteers, or 2,000 volunteers have connected through to the various projects around the world. And in February of this year, after a very quick startup, really, we were acquired by Flight Centre. So that and that's another question I get a lot is, how do you feel about being in a corporate model, from a small East Vancouver business to being with such a large company. But when I look at when we sold, and I talked to my wife about this, we thought there's only really three ways we could look at the acquisition, and those were, what's best for the business, what's best for our stakeholders, our volunteer projects on the ground, and what's the best for our family. And the two that really resonate with me is it's the best for the business, that it has Flight Centre's resources, and it's best for our stakeholders that they be and stakeholders are projects, that they be distributed through those channels. So it made a lot of sense when we try to look at it quite simply. One of the things I think we do an excellent job with is really stay on top on a weekly basis of who's using the site and who's connecting it, and there's just some interesting patterns that have surfaced over time. And I had assumptions, and I'd say they were. I wouldn't say they were necessarily wrong, but I didn't think about what would be the realities of Go Volunteering. So this is slightly than the industry as a whole, but I think there is a lot of similarities. So one of the things that we notice is it's 77% women, and at that stage, on that level, that's a complete ownership of our site, and I'm trying to figure out why it's that high. I have guesses and assumptions as well, but it's 77% women. I also find that I find it interesting that over a quarter of our users are over 50 years of age, and that's because some early research we showed had volunteering aligned with more of a gap year type the program, or speaking to young people that would be comfortable on a foam mat, although that's not always the case. But it has a certain stereotype of who's actually a volunteer, and this just shows that it's far bigger than that. Most interested in country, Costa Rica, and I think generally speaking, you have an idealistic traveler with a nation that has an idealistic brand. So I think that they link up quite well, and Costa Rica by far and away is our most searched country. And the top 10 volunteering cities around the world, you've got Vancouver, London, Toronto, LA, Seattle, New York. When we look at this, we do thermal maps on a monthly basis, and of who's pinging our site, and it's amazing. You have and I never would have guessed this, but it's shaped up to be a bit of a blue state, red state thing. We're quite popular in Quebec and in Toronto and Vancouver, Victoria. We're quite popular in San Francisco, Seattle, Portland. New York City, Boston. There's a hub of activity, so there's definitely some overlap there. I can't understand why, but it is what it is. And our most popular projects are, and I wasn't surprised by this, is it's sea turtle conservation, and that has everything to do with the fact it is a surf and sand, sun project, and you can have a voluntourism experience that comes quite close to a traditional beach experience. So that is that's certainly one of the most in-demand pillars, or at least program types within our projects. What I consider to make a good project, and this is as I get deeper into this business and learn more, I start to gain a degree more clarity with every passing day. And I'll talk about one project in particular that I consider to be just about the perfect project. And there's one in Guatemala that I just got back from, called Project Somos. And Project Somos is run by a Canadian charity and from Vancouver. Their goal is to build a children's village for 49 orphans. They've used the community at every point. The project, when completed, will be turned over to the community, and they're using environmentally sustainable building materials at every stop of the way. So there are projects that exist out there that you can just go down a checklist and say, is this environmentally sound? Absolutely. Has the community been involved? Sure. It works for social groups and empowering others. And it has an end date, and it's going to be finished, and it's going to be turned over to the community, and then there won't be volunteers anymore, but there will be an amazing legacy. And I think that that's not the only one in doing that, but the only project doing that, but those to me make for the most ideal ones, where they consider the legacy of all their impacts. What makes for a good volunteer? This is a question we get, and there's actually a link on our site called What to Ask, and it's a long page, and it has a lot of considerations, but I think to distill them down, the volunteer has to be open to change, and expectation that things will probably be more challenging than you would have ever expected, not just physically and emotionally, the exhausting experiences. And just to be conscious of their own legacy, and this of course is echoes Jacqueline's presentation with just understanding what your own choices and decisions are basically funding as you vote with your dollar. And I think that this is a huge thing for volunteers to essentially walk the talk. What are our challenges? I think we have to always be aware of our impact cycles, and I try to pay close attention to that, and they're completely different with every single project in every different city or town, and it's just being committed to looking at if we send volunteers down, are you displacing local jobs, or are there local employees that are working with the volunteers to make sure that project stays on task, and in which case the volunteers can actually be providing employment. Vetting the projects en masse is a long job. It can take weeks for a project to contact us before they're ever on the site, and we ask a lot, not just running them through GuideStar, but the testimonials and seeing their track record, and basically convincing us that they're going to do what they say they're going to do, and look after the volunteers well, and have a positive stake in their community. And just about done here, but the future, I think we're going to see, I don't believe that volunteering abroad or voluntourism is anywhere near its peak. I think we're just going to keep riding this wave of volunteer interest, and a lot of it's going to be coming from the baby boomers. That relates back to that stat I showed you of being over 50. And there's going to be, baby boomers have different needs within the voluntourism experience than someone who is 25. And there's projects out there that need to be communicated that they can accommodate a baby boomer, and it doesn't have to be fancy, but it could be a private room with its own bathroom and comfortable bed, and then you can still get that same 9 to 5 work out of a baby boomer than you would as a 21, and sometimes better, to be honest. But those are there's going to be a fair bit of growth there. We're going to see more volunteer operators. Charities, I think, is going to be an unusual one. I had a talk with a nonprofit in Victoria that they were looking at volunteers as a means for additional fundraising. So I believe that we're going to start seeing that as a real possibility. The main relates directly to the Flight Centre acquisition of Go Volunteering, and I think that's going to be that's absolutely going to happen because there's a demand, and mainstream adoptions can help fulfill the airfare and the other pre and post services that a volunteerist may need. And intra-ministerial standards and governance. I started working with the INGWAT, which is the Guatemalan Tourism Board, and it's very infant at this stage, but we're committed to looking at some form of certification on the ground in Guatemala where volunteerists or tour operators or other organizations that are in the chain can look at projects and feel comfortable that they're operating at a high level and with the community's interest in mind. And this is very important that the tourism boards start to be also accountable for the tourist experience, whether that be a volunteerist experience. They're all still travelers at the end of the day, and at least in the eyes of the tourism board. That's it. Questions and answers time. I hope everyone heard me okay and got something out of that.
Great, thank you, Aaron. And this is a very good overview of volunteering. We could probably do a couple more hours on it. This is definitely an emerging trend, and one that that it's likely to stick around for many years. Especially, it will likely be a generational thing with the younger generation and even then the baby boomers, as you mentioned. But because it's emerging, the benefits and the impacts are, I guess, are still being uncovered, right? And each destination will be different, and each project will have a different dynamic. So this is definitely a work in progress, and it will continue to be very dynamic, and we'll have to adapt as things change. Okay, well, thanks very much for all your questions, actually, and thank you for your answers on the Tao debate. When I do this in person, this usually turns into a half an hour question about what the hotels need to do to make it more effective, what we need to do, and then it's a lot of a blame game. Things like I do my best as a traveler, but it's not being supported by the accommodation sector. So thank you for that. We do have a few questions. I'll answer Chris' question first. Hi, Chris. With regards to mass tourism, you will see that in one of the last slides I included Holidays Forever. And Holidays Forever, as you know, it's the company that we used to work for, both of us, TUI, our first choice, Signature Vacations here in Canada. And they're one of the first mass tour operators to have, in fact, a guideline on what to do as a traveler. It's a very nice, quite friendly-looking guide. They did it in collaboration with the Travel Foundation, of which they support. So I'd say that definitely there is a role of the mass tour operators. Since I worked for one for nearly 25 years, I'd say that there's also a role for support from the destinations. So what the destination services can do to ensure that when they're sourcing their excursions, that they're all done in a in an environmentally sound way, that the shows are humane, that the attractions are humane. What we talked about about animals, marine or land animals, and that many of the shows too, that since we bring the people, that we collaborate with them to ensure that we're providing things that are as authentic as possible. Many things we don't have a lot of control over, but I think the whole concept of sustainability and involvement and being a responsible company also entails the whole collaboration aspect. In the past, we used to send people and say, oh, this is what they're giving us, but now operators should get more involved with the stakeholders in destination, saying this is the way we want it, and let us help you. And the Travel Foundation does a lot of that in helping local communities to figure out what is the best kind of entertainment that they can provide, shows, the crafts, and all of that. So definitely, I think that there is a role of master operators, and probably will have a huge impact considering the volume and the numbers, more so perhaps than the smaller volume adventure companies or the more niche type of travel. So the ideal thing is that we get as many of the master operators involved, and it will cascade down to the destination. Ultimately, the traveler will get, I think, more involved, and they become more aware of what they can do. So that's my answer, Chris. Then we have one for Erin. I know, Giselle, you asked a couple ones, so we'll ask Erin about volunteering that creates a dependency in destinations. So, Erin, how do you see that as one of the challenges?
Well, it depends. There's such a huge array of projects that the answer would be some projects, and in some communities there would be I don't know whether a dependence, I'm not sure, but certainly a benefit to the economic footprint. There's going to be, in some communities, they're kind of off the path, so they would certainly enjoy having a volunteer or a traveler or to whoever to be in their shops and in their restaurants, and so there's certainly an economic benefit for many places that comes with having volunteers. Does it become dependent on the help of volunteers? I don't know. That's such a sweeping question that the answer is yes, and in some instances the answer is no.
Yes, there's that ambiguity and that paradox, right? Yeah, and I agree. It's interesting that we were all addressing this. Some of the questions are related essentially to the type of product that we offer or the type of delivery. So we have a question about safaris, right? How safaris or other type of tours, which involves observational culture or visits to places that where we feel that perhaps we're intruding in their traditional way of life. And I would say that if I would just answer that question very briefly, of the fact that the delivery, the same way that the tour operators that are part of the mass tourism, the operators of any of the services, so a safari company, a cultural company, or whatever other local provider of services, follows sustainability guidelines. So that's definitely the key. The key is that we have to provide we as an industry have to provide the foundation so that we enable the travelers to be more responsible. The traveler on its own can't just be responsible. They can influence perhaps, but the safari operators, are they doing it with the right vehicles? Are they doing it at the right time of the day? Do they have the right capacity with people, park rangers and specialists on, animal behavior to understand whether they're creating stress to the animals and so on. So it starts with the operation to make sure that it's sustainable, and then while they're there is how do you take pictures? Do you make noise when you're in the truck? I remember doing this tiger safari in India, which I believe that now they've been discontinued. And there were some people were in the couple of jeeps back, shouting and screaming and doing stupid stuff, right? So that's the kind of thing that we're taught. But they didn't give us any instructions about obviously you gotta be quiet and so on. So I'd say that the answer to that is that we have to ensure that the operators provide the foundation for sustainable tourism. The other one is actually cruises, and there's a question on from I think it's Natasha, who what is the impact of cruise visitors? We're talking about the visitor intensity and the impacts on the destinations. Now next week, 2 weeks from now, sorry, we have a webinar on that. So that's going to be completely dedicated. So please join us, because you'll be able to get a lot more information on how to mitigate the impacts of the on the destination for cruise. So we'll handle that. Another one for Mark, and perhaps Aaron, you can answer this if you know. Are people interested in going to areas that have suffered some form of conflict? So I guess most of it will have to be post-conflict areas, whether it's war or whether it might have been also issues around natural disasters for which they're recovering, and then play a role in rebuilding, or I guess it would be rebuilding in either the environmental side or the social side. Do you know, Aaron, if there's an interest in that?
Yeah, well, it depends on how recent the conflict was. If this is on the heels of a civil war, then I'm not interested in sending volunteers into a situation which still has very, very real tangible issues around it. I think that is I don't believe I have I just don't feel comfortable with it, and because of that, I'm not going to pursue it. But to answer your question quite bluntly, there are people that are interested in going to areas of conflict. I did have an organization that builds playgrounds for children in Afghanistan, and it is an amazing project. But you're required to have bodyguards when you go every day, and at some point in time, you just have to go with your gut, and you look at it and you think it does sound like it has benefits to the community. It does sound like the volunteers would get an amazingly real, deep experience out of that. But is it the right thing to do? And I'm just not too sure it is for go volunteering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's this whole issue that we haven't really addressed in detail, but it's this whole issue of liability, right? That there is for the people that are going. So there's a lot of inherent risks, even on the areas where they may not necessarily be in a post-conflict. There may be other issues around security that have to be addressed. So that's what the point about the fact that each case has to really be seen on an individual basis, provided that you give the framework, the best possible framework, to ensure that everybody's safe and that you are providing the most benefit. Okay, so the other question, and I think we have question. Let me see, it's 1:56, so we have a couple quick ones. Apologies if we don't address all of them, and we do take them down, and then we'll send you something separate as a response to your question. Natasha says, what kind of database is kept so that persons who volunteer on a short-term basis can come back another time and spend a longer period of time or plan a trip because they are interested in a particular project?
The database is kept with the actual projects themselves. But one of the things we do is on a quarterly basis we share all of our market research openly, and then give them give all of our project partners insight into the inquiries they get, the conversations that we're having. And about 2 quarters ago, we sent one of the paragraphs that we wrote about listed the importance of staying engaged with your past volunteers. And when I look for myself when I went to the project with my father. I left the project, and then I never heard from them again. And we didn't finish the house. We were at a stage where it was being framed, and then our 2 weeks was up, and then in came another group to pick up where we left off. But there's not a month that goes by where I wonder what that house looks like right now, and if I want to see it. We spent kind of a lot of time and effort into that, and so it is important. I think everyone wants to stay in touch with something that especially there's an emotional investment in, and so yeah, it is up to the database of the actual program operator. We make suggestions and provide market insight, and in the hopes that they grow and evolve as an organization.
And that is probably just not a one-time thing. There's kind of a legacy that is left behind in terms perhaps of the physical structure of something that is being built. But as you say, that emotional connection, it's a really important, and also it's what creates the longevity of relationships that are built and continued benefit, not just that one-time thing, right? Natasha, just to answer your question. The cruise visitors and volunteering, since they're there for a really short time, that's a really good idea. I think that instead of, they could be excursions that are not just to go see an area, but it could be something like come for a couple of hours to help to clean a beach or something. I don't know if people want to do that, go on cruises, but and I'm not sure if it's been done, but I kind of like that, and that's something that maybe next week, in a couple of weeks, if you join us, we can ask. We will have the Chief Executive Environmental Officer for RCL, so that's a really great opportunity to ask the main man. So we have a couple more questions, but let me see. So Melody, you also asked about have you gone back to projects, so we addressed that. So Aaron, how actively engaged are the organizations that you work with inclusive business opportunities that can support long-term goals for local communities?
Okay, sorry. That question was how actively engaged are the organizations that I work with inclusive business? Well, hugely. There's part of what makes a good project, in my mind, isn't just what gets done on from 9 to 5. It's the decisions that go around that support that experience or the overall goal. So if you're building a school and staying at a wonderful eco lodge that's locally owned, has women in positions of authority, that buys their food locally, I've been in situations where I felt like everything I did during the day was negated by everything I did at night and the resources that I drained. So yeah, we're hugely a huge advocate of thinking through the voluntourism experience, inclusive of the project and the required services that support that happening.
Okay, yeah, great, thanks. And then the last one, and that's it, we'll close it, but Steve, hi, Steve Gillick, you asked what consideration given for people on package tours. There are some initiatives that are currently taking place, especially with organizations like Sandals and Air Canada. We did something last year that highlighted some of those activities, and we do hope that we can increase that, the participation of the collaboration between the master operator, the resort, and the community to just get out of the place for a day and participate in some kind of community project or involvement at some level. So thank you very much, everyone, for participating. We have another 5 webinars that are coming up. So if you have not done so already, can you please tell your friends, colleagues, and don't forget that you can also download today's webinar under archives and all of the ones from last year as well. We're looking for nominations also for the 2012 RTTF Award. So please go on the website, look at the details on the outline of what is needed, and please submit one for your own company, or if you have ideas, call companies that you know or nominate other people. And lastly, I'd like to thank again the series sponsors, Air Canada, Delta, Chelsea Hotels, and Ted Rogers School of Management, Ryerson, for their support. And I think that's it for today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Erin, for your participation, and to everyone who's taken the time to join us for the webinar. And let's see you in a